My brother chuckled. Guess intelligence isn't genetic in your branch. My daughter's shoulders drooped. I looked at him and said, then you won't mind funding your son's tutoring yourself. Silence hit the table. And then, I never thought Thanksgiving dinner would be the moment I'd finally stand up to my brother. But when Kyle leaned back in his chair, smirking at my 14-year-old daughter across the mashed potatoes, something inside me just snapped. Guess intelligence isn't genetic in your branch, he said loud enough for everyone to hear. I watched Emma's shoulders drop, her eyes fixed on her plate. She'd been so excited to share that she made the honor roll despite struggling with math all semester. And Kyle, my older brother, the one who never let me forget he graduated top of his class, had just crushed that moment with 7 words. The thing is, this wasn't new. Kyle had been like this our entire lives. Growing up, he was the golden child, the one with straight A's and scholarships, while I was, well, average. Mom used to say, Kyle got the brains, Sarah got the heart. I learned to live with it. But watching him do the same thing to Emma, that was different. I set down my fork carefully. My hands were shaking, but I kept my voice steady. Then you won't mind funding your son's tutoring yourself. The silence that hit the table was deafening. Kyle's face went pale, then red. What are you talking about? You see, for the past 2 years I'd been paying for my nephew Josh's tutoring. $300 a month. Kyle had asked, no, told me, it was family duty, since I worked from home and clearly had the time to make extra money. He'd convinced me that since Josh struggled with reading, and since I'd overcome my own learning challenges, I should help. Like it was my responsibility. Do you think that was fair? Because I actually believed him. I thought I was being a good aunt. I'm talking about the tutoring I've been paying for, I said, looking directly at him. Since intelligence apparently skipped Josh's branch too, according to your logic, you can handle it yourself. My mom dropped her serving spoon. My dad, who usually stayed quiet during family drama, actually looked up from his plate. And my sister-in-law Jennifer? Her mouth literally fell open. Kyle stammered, That's completely different. Josh has a learning disability. Emma's just what? I interrupted, my voice sharper than I'd ever used with him. Just not as smart as your perfect son? Even though she made honor roll and Josh is failing 3 classes. Jennifer turned to Kyle. Josh is failing 3 classes? Oh, this was news to her. Kyle had apparently kept that little detail to himself. Just like he'd kept quiet about the fact that I was the one funding Josh's twice-weekly sessions with Ms. Patterson, the reading specialist who charged a small fortune. Emma was staring at me now, her eyes wide. I'd never told her about the tutoring payments. I'd never told anyone really, because Kyle had framed it as our little arrangement, and said Jennifer would be embarrassed if people knew Josh needed help. But seeing Emma's face after his comment, something in me just broke. Or maybe it finally came together. Kyle tried to recover. Sarah, let's discuss this privately. No, I said. You made your comment publicly at the dinner table in front of my daughter. We can discuss this right here. My dad cleared his throat. Kyle, did Sarah really pay for Josh's tutoring? It's complicated, Dad. It's not complicated, I said. He told me it was family duty. He told me that since I didn't have student loans anymore and he did, I should contribute. He told me, I looked at Emma then back at Kyle, that intelligence ran in families and since I'd figured out how to succeed despite not being naturally gifted like him, I should pay it forward. Do you see what he did there? He'd used my own insecurities, the same ones he'd helped create growing up, to manipulate me into paying for his son's education. Jennifer's voice was ice cold. Kyle, is this true? The thing about Kyle is he's brilliant at talking his way out of things. He's charming, persuasive. He'd probably have spun some story about family helping family, about how I'd volunteered, about how he'd planned to pay me back eventually. But before he could say anything, Emma spoke up. Mom paid for Josh's tutoring? Her voice was small. But she told me we couldn't afford the art camp I wanted this summer because money was tight. Oh God. I'd forgotten about that conversation. I told Emma we needed to budget carefully, that maybe next year. And the whole time I was sending $300 a month to my brother who made twice my salary. What would you have done in that moment? Because I felt about 2 inches tall. Kyle must have seen an opening because he jumped in. Emma, sweetie, that's different. Your mom was helping Josh with something he really needed. Don't, I said quietly. Don't talk to my daughter right now. Sarah, you're being dramatic. Am I? I pulled out my phone, opening my banking app. Let me show everyone exactly how dramatic I'm being. My hands were shaking as I scrolled through 2 years of Venmo transactions. $300. Every single month. Sometimes more when Josh needed extra sessions before tests. I turned the phone toward my parents. $7,200. That's what I've paid over 2 years. My mother's hand went to her mouth. My father's jaw clenched. That thing he does when he's really angry but trying to stay calm. And you want to know the worst part? I looked at Kyle and for the first time in my life I didn't see my successful older brother. I saw a bully. I was happy to help Josh. I really was. He's my nephew and I love him. But you didn't ask me to help out of love. You asked because you thought I owed you something. Because you've spent our entire lives making me feel less than. Kyle's face had gone from red to white. That's not fair. I never. You literally just told my daughter that intelligence isn't genetic in her branch of the family, I said. At Thanksgiving dinner. Because she was proud of making honor roll. Jennifer stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. We're leaving. Jennifer, Kyle started. No. She looked at me and I saw something in her eyes I'd never seen before. Respect. Or maybe solidarity. Sarah, I'm so sorry. I didn't know about any of this. If I had known. She shook her head. We'll write you a check for everything. I don't want, I began. You're getting it, Jennifer said firmly. Every penny. Plus interest. He turned to Kyle. Get your coat. Now. But Kyle wasn't done. He never knew when to quit. This is ridiculous. Sarah, tell them you offered to help. Tell them this was your idea. And there was. The same thing he'd done our whole lives. Twisting the narrative, making himself the victim, making me question my own reality. I looked at Emma, who was watching me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Then I looked at my parents, both waiting to see what I'd say. And finally I looked at Kyle. Get out of my parents' house, I said. And don't come back until you're ready to apologize to Emma. You can't kick me out of Mom and Dad's house. Actually, my father said, his voice carrying that quiet authority that always meant business. She can. And I'm backing her up. Brief Kyle. Now. What happened next you won't believe. But I'll tell you this. That moment, watching Kyle grab his coat, seeing the shock on his face that someone had finally stood up to him, that was just the beginning. Because what I discovered the next day made everything so much worse. And so much clearer. Very soon I'll tell you exactly what I found out and how I made sure Kyle would never treat anyone in our family that way again. Let's just say, sometimes the people we think are the smartest are actually the easiest to outsmart. The next morning Jennifer called me. She was crying. Sarah, I need to tell you something. Can we meet for coffee? We met at the Starbucks near her house. She looked exhausted, like she hadn't slept. He probably hadn't. I went through Kyle's emails last night, she said, sliding her phone across the table. Look at this. It was an email from Miss Patterson, the tutor. Dated 3 months ago. Kyle, I wanted to follow up on our conversation. As I mentioned, Josh has made remarkable progress and honestly doesn't need twice-weekly sessions anymore. Once a week would be more than sufficient at this point. Let me know how you'd like to proceed. My stomach dropped. He kept me paying for sessions Josh didn't need? There's more. Jennifer scrolled to another email. He told Miss Patterson to keep the twice-weekly schedule but only see Josh once. He pocketed the difference. I stared at the screen. Kyle had been charging me for 8 sessions a month while Josh only attended 4. That's $1,200 he just stolen from me. For over 3 months. Do you think I should have seen this coming? Because honestly I felt so stupid. I'm getting a divorce, Jennifer said flatly. This isn't the first time he's lied about money. But stealing from his own sister? Using his son as an excuse. She shook her head. I'm done. Jennifer, you don't have to. Yes, I do. And Sarah? Josh told me something else last night. Kyle's been telling him that you're paying for tutoring because you feel guilty that Emma's smarter than him. He's been using it to make Josh feel bad about himself. That's when I knew exactly what I had to do. Kyle hadn't just stolen my money. He'd weaponized it to hurt a 14-year-old kid. His own son. Called my dad. Remember how Kyle always said he couldn't afford Josh's tutoring because of his student loans? Yeah. Can you find out if he still has student loans? Because I'm pretty sure he doesn't. Dad called back an hour later. Sarah, Kyle paid off his student loans 4 years ago. I co-signed them originally, remember? The bank sent me a notification when they were cleared. So he'd lied about that too. He'd been pocketing money meant for his son while making me think I was helping with a genuine hardship. I spent that whole day gathering everything. Bank statements. Emails. Text messages where Kyle had said things like, Josh really needs this, and you're saving his future. I made copies of everything. Then I did something I'd never done before. I called a family meeting. Just me, Mom, Dad, and Kyle. No Jennifer. She'd already told him she wanted space. No kids. Kyle showed up looking annoyed. Sarah, this is childish. So I made a joke about Emma. Sit down, Dad said. Kyle sat. I laid out every document on my parents' dining room table. Bank statements. Miss Patterson's emails that Jennifer had forwarded me. The loan payoff notification. You stole from me, I said simply. $4,000 over 3 months, minimum. And you used your son to do it. Kyle's face went pale. I can explain. Then explain why you told Josh that I'm paying for tutoring because I feel guilty Emma's smarter than him. Explain why you're using my money to give your own son a complex. Mom was crying now. Dad looked angrier than I'd ever seen him. Here's what's going to happen, I said, and my voice was surprisingly steady. You're going to pay me back every penny. Not just the $4,000 you stole. All $7,000. And you're going to apologize to Emma. A real apology. And if I don't? Kyle tried to sound defiant, but his voice shook. I pulled out one more document. Then I file a police report for fraud. And I send these emails to your boss. Kyle worked at a financial firm. His whole career was built on trust and integrity. An email chain showing he defrauded his own sister? That would destroy him. You wouldn't, he whispered. Try me, I said. And I meant it. Would you have done it? The thing is, I'd spent my whole life being the nice one. The understanding one. The one who let things go because that's just how Kyle is. But watching Emma's shoulders drop at that dinner table had flipped a switch I didn't even know I had. You have until Friday, I said. $7,000. Plus a written apology to Emma that I get to approve before you give it to her. And you're going to therapy or I tell Jennifer's divorce lawyer about all of this. Kyle opened his mouth. Closed it. Opened it again. Sarah. We're done here, Dad said. Kyle, leave. After Kyle left, Mom hugged me. He was still crying. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm sorry I ever made you feel like you were less than him. What happened next, though? That's when things got really interesting. Because Kyle tried something I absolutely did not see coming. And my response? Well, let's just say I learned I was much better at this whole revenge thing than I ever thought possible. Friday came. Kyle didn't show up. He didn't call. He didn't text. Instead, I got an email from a lawyer. Kyle was claiming the money was a gift, and that I was harassing him. He was threatening to get a restraining order against me if I contacted him again. I sat there staring at my laptop screen and honestly, I laughed. Actually laughed out loud. Emma looked up from her homework. Mom, you okay? Your uncle just made the biggest mistake of his life, I said. See, Kyle forgot something important. I work in HR. I deal with documentation and legal issues every single day. And I'd been very, very careful to save every text message where he'd said this was a loan he'd pay back, every email where he'd called it temporary help, every Venmo transaction where I'd written Josh tutoring will settle up later. I forwarded everything to his lawyer with a very simple message. These don't look like gifts. See you in small claims court. Then I did something Kyle really wasn't expecting. I called Josh. Hey buddy. How are you doing? Josh was quiet for a moment. Aunt Sarah, I'm sorry about what Dad said to Emma. That was really mean. That's not your fault, sweetheart. None of this is your fault. I want you to know something. I loved helping you with tutoring. I really did. And I'm so proud of how hard you've worked. Dad says you're mad at us now. My heart broke a little. I'm not mad at you, Josh. Not even a tiny bit. I'm mad at your dad for lying. Big difference. You want to know something? What? Emma wants to know if you'd like to come over this weekend. Just you. We're going to make pizza and watch movies. What do you think? I could hear the smile in his voice. Really? Dad said you probably never wanted to see me again. Your dad, I said carefully, says a lot of things that aren't true. I love you, Josh. That hasn't changed. Do you think I did the right thing? Because Kyle was trying to use Josh as a weapon and I refused to let that happen. That Sunday Josh came over. Jennifer dropped him off. They were staying with her parents while the divorce proceeded. Emma and Josh made pizza together, laughing and getting flour everywhere, and it was normal. Like kids should be. Aunt Sarah. Josh asked later while we were watching a movie. Why is Dad like this? How do you answer that question? I thought about it carefully. Sometimes people get scared, I said. Your dad has always been afraid of not being the best, the smartest, the most successful. And when you're that scared, you sometimes hurt people without meaning to. Did you hurt him back? Josh asked. Is that why he's so upset? No, honey. I just stopped letting him hurt me. There's a difference. Emma nodded. It's like in my book. Standing up for yourself isn't the same as being mean. Smart kid, my daughter. Monday morning, I got a call from my dad. Sarah, Kyle wants to talk. He's here at the house. Will you come? I almost said no, but something in Dad's voice made me go. Kyle was sitting at the kitchen table and he looked broken. His eyes were red. His hands were shaking. I'm an alcoholic, he said as soon as I walked in. I stopped. What? I've been drinking heavily for 2 years. The money I took from you? It went to hiding my drinking from Jennifer. Expensive bottles I kept at the office. Bar tabs I couldn't explain. His voice cracked. I hit rock bottom yesterday when Josh told Jennifer he didn't want to see me anymore. Mom was crying again. Dad had his hand on Kyle's shoulder. I've already paid back the $7,000, Kyle said, sliding an envelope across the table. It's all there. And I checked into rehab this morning. I start tomorrow. I needed to tell you the truth first. All of it. I sat down slowly. The student loans? Paid off years ago. I've been gambling online too. I've lost about $30,000 over 3 years. He looked at me, really looked at me for the first time in maybe forever. Sarah, I'm sorry. For everything. For our whole lives. You deserved better than how I treated you. Was this real? I honestly couldn't tell. Part of me wanted to stay angry. Part of me wanted to walk out. But then he said something that changed everything. Emma called me. What? She called me last night. She said, Kyle's voice broke completely. She said she forgave me but that I needed to get help because Josh needed a real dad. And she said her mom taught her that being smart means knowing when to ask for help. She said you were the smartest person she knew. I felt tears on my face. I didn't even realize I was crying. I wrote her an apology, Kyle said, pulling out a letter. Will you read it? I read it. It was 3 pages. It was honest and raw and it took responsibility for everything. Not just the Thanksgiving comment but years of subtle digs. Of making her feel less than, of treating her the way he'd treated me. It's good, I whispered. Can I give it to her? I looked at my parents. Dad nodded slightly. Mom was still crying but she smiled. After rehab, I said. You finish rehab, you stay sober for 3 months and you can give it to her in person. At Sunday dinner. Here. Kyle nodded. Deal. And Sarah? I'm paying for Emma's art camp. This summer and every summer she wants to go. It's already paid for. 3 months later, Kyle gave Emma the letter. She read it, cried and hugged him. Josh was there too and watching them together. Really together with Kyle sober and present and real. It was everything I'd wanted. Jennifer and Kyle didn't get back together. That ship had sailed. But they learned to co-parent like adults. And Kyle? He stayed sober. He went to meetings. He apologized to Jennifer too and meant it. Last Thanksgiving we all gathered at my parents' house again. Kyle brought sparkling cider. Emma told everyone she'd gotten straight A's even in math. And Kyle stood up and said, that's my brilliant niece. She gets her intelligence from her mom. Emma beamed. I cried. Josh clapped the loudest. You know what I learned? Sometimes the best revenge isn't destroying someone. It's refusing to let them destroy you and giving them the chance to become better. Not because they deserve it but because you deserve peace. Did I think Kyle would actually change? Honestly no. But he did. And our family is stronger now than it's ever been. Thank you so much for watching my story. If you enjoyed it, I'd really appreciate a like. It helps more than you know. And if something resonated with you or if you disagreed with how I handled things, please share your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one and your perspectives mean a lot to me. Thanks again for listening.